Anuj. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Andrew Kendall. I'm with Atlassian. Been here for coming on 4 years. We've seen a tremendous amount of change, both internally at Atlassian as well as our customers in the government. And so really looking forward to having a conversation today and kind of talking through some of the things we're seeing and the great things that Atlassian is doing to help our customers further their own mission. So, Arham, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and excited to be talking about this topic, which is something that we've been kind of going through, and I've personally been going through. I've been covering the federal civilian market for the last 20 years, right? At different software companies, big enterprise companies. And it's interesting to see that this topic has continued on, and I can just say like there's a lot more urgency to it. But having said that, I lead the federal civilian sales team at Atlassian. I don't have the tenure as Andrew does, but coming in, I joined the company in October of last year. And over the last 8 months, what I have seen is that our ability to drive our customers' mission in this time of inflection and change is even more important. And I think what my role is to enable our team to understand our customers' mission that much more better, so we can really lean in to solve some of these problems that we'll be talking about. So that's a little bit about me. I'll kick it off to Anuj.
Hey, hi everyone. This is Anuj Sachdeva. I'm the Chief Executive at Clovity. We are an Atlassian Platinum partner. I'm privileged to be sitting next to Andrew and Arham and talking about the federal civilian sector and as well as about the legacy modernization, actually how it's transforming the new era of the federal services, especially with the new administration and how to make it more optimized.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. So let's jump right into it. Arham, you introduced a little bit about you've been here for, in this space for 20 years. And, the first question is really, we continue to see these legacy systems, and they're, dominating the federal space. And so how do we get around that? There's a tremendous cost of keeping them running, and how do we get around that? And what are the government, customers that you're working with doing to kind of solve those problems?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, right? Like you said, these legacy systems have been around for a long time. What I have noticed is that the government really innovates in cycles. And when I was at Oracle, we saw that firsthand, where they went from a very old system of that they were using for Oracle, and then they kind of jumped like 2 innovations over, and they went to the latest and the greatest. But it takes time for them to kind of really get to that. And the reason for that is that when government invests in these systems, right, because of the way they serve the citizen mission, they have to be very careful when they make changes to their systems, right? So over time, as they implement the system, it gets very ingrained in how they work, on how they deliver their mission to the citizens. And what happens during that phase or that period of usage of that system is that it gets very, very complex. It becomes fairly bespoke to how they work, but it also creates a lot of inefficiencies, right? Over time, a lot of different teams come in and work on the systems. It kind of creates, each team imprints their own perspective on the systems. And over time, what happens is that they just inherently become inefficient. Data becomes fragmented. There also comes in a lack of real-time system access, right? And the reason that they can move away easily from these systems is that there's a sense of security that has to prevail and underpin anything that the government does, right? So when you take all that into consideration, our government customers can't really flip on a switch of a dime, right? They have to kind of really take into account all of the stakeholders, all of the things that they're delivering, take security and compliance into consideration, and then make a move. And that's why we still see a lot of these legacy systems linger around for a very long time within our federal agencies. That's at least what my observations have been. I don't know if Anuj, you can add anything else.
So by the way, I really like the way you put it. The careful part is where the legacy system is, right? Because the way it's at the end of the day, it's serving U.S. citizens. And then the careful part is where the key is, because what happens is when they adopt a system, they sort of have a journey with it, and then in and around that, they ending up buying other things, and that's kind of where the fragmentation get created,
Right.
right? And then pretty much they don't realize that in the modern era, which something could be resolved with 5 systems, they actually have 400 systems for that, right? Because it's so fragmented. And now to top it all, the worst is you ended up hiring talent for each of those, some which are legacy oriented talent, like, and then some which are so modernized, and then the upskilling of the talent becomes so difficult because some of those talents are sitting in sort of dark ages, whereas few are, obviously the new tools are being adopted. But that said, look, I'll tell you something. In the modern era, I mean, especially, I know, I mean, there is a lot of connotations around AI, where it's headed. But the good news is, because with AI getting introduced, I think the federal government, or in general public sector, doesn't have a choice now left to actually take that leap, a big leap, to get into the modernization. Otherwise, I mean, as we said, right, if they don't, it's like there will be a huge disaster in general. Again, the serving of the citizen at the end of the day is the key, but the objective can only be resolved now by adopting that big leap and going from that 400 systems to a tool rationalization to down to 5, and which is where I believe fundamentally, I mean, I know, like, sort of where Atlassian fits very well. So
Excellent.
we can cover next 20 minutes in this.
This is good. Okay, excellent. Thanks, both of you. Anuj, I think that's a great segue into, really the next question, and that's more along the lines of what makes Atlassian, such a strong platform to, really help either improve or replace these legacy tools that have really just continued to drag on in the federal government.
Yeah, no, I will. So I'll tell you personally, right? I mean, we are working with a bunch of customers, without naming few, but look, I mean, there's you name it, right? There's old school systems. There's sort of a little bit of a 90s system which are being migrated. The good news is Atlassian actually solves all the pieces of the puzzle. And the best part is, which I believe Atlassian has done, is the whole marketplace investment. Because not only the core product like Jira, Confluence, and JSM is resolving the whole service management piece, the project management piece, the change management piece, the asset management piece, and most importantly, obviously, the centralized knowledge base. With the marketplace, they are able to resolve basically the end to end. Like, for example, right? I mean, think about it now. You have Jira, who's obviously able to resolve the project management aspect of it, the whole workforce management piece. But then you have the plugin, which is there's numerous plugins for test management, right? So now you have a complete DevOps from test management perspective. Then you have a marketplace app for requirements management, so you can create a complete traceability of what business is asking, putting down into an epic in a story, all the way down to production release, all the way down to sort of JSM, where it can be service managed. And then now, most recently, I know at Team 25, I really enjoyed the whole thrill of it, the strategy collection piece, right? So, well, at an executive level, you can roll all this up in the strategy collection piece. The portfolio of the portfolio is reporting. I mean, that's a slam dunk, right? Because you think about it, not only you're solving the user problem, you're now solving the executive problem.
Yeah.
And again, the biggest gravy on top, Rovo now, which is free. And again, modern era AI, I mean, and within the enterprise, nothing like it, right? You take Confluence, you add Rovo on top of it, search is at drop of your hat, right? I mean, again, as I said originally, right, taking the 400 systems, doing rationalization, transforming into that Atlassian ecosystem with the apps is the solution. I don't know, Arham, what you think, but that's
and before I pass it to Arham, I just want to echo, when we talk about that strategy collection, and you think about some of the focus of the government and our federal partners right now, it is, are we working on the right things? And when we think about efficiency and the best use of our tax dollars, are the most important strategic objectives of our government agency. Is that work being done, and can we see it being done? And are we making sure that we're efficient?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and I agree with both of you and what you're saying. I think the biggest thing to think about and keep in perspective when you're thinking about Atlassian as a platform is Atlassian is really where work happens, right? Everything that you talked about in terms of Jira and Epic and tracking of the work and strategy collection, where you can kind of bubble up the visibility. And if you boil it down, that's really where work is happening.
Yeah.
So as a platform, if we are able to deliver the single platform where work happens, it's very easy for us to then go and then talk and actually encapsulate all of those 400, 200 different legacy systems into one single platform. And that's a powerful message, in my opinion, to our federal customers, because right now we're seeing all these consolidations that are happening. Right? We are getting calls from our customers and saying like, hey, I have replicative tools that do the same thing. What do I do? And we're able to bring a very strong point of view in that sense, where we're saying like, hey, this is where work happens. Our tool set, our platform is where work happens. And we are the perfect choice for consolidation. And we have built a platform for it to be scalable, right? And we can get into the architecture, but I wouldn't bore our audience with all of that stuff, right? But when our customers look at any kind of modernization, they want to make sure that they're not putting an investment into a system or a tool or a platform that's not scalable, that's not future-proof, it's not going to grow with them. Atlassian as a company, we've innovated over the last 20 plus years on the products that our users love and our customers love. And we've essentially taken all of that lesson learned over the last 20 years and we've built this system of work, right? This is where work happens. And it's, by the way, it's not just for the IT teams. And we'll get into more about how non-IT teams kind of get into utilizing our platform. But that's the beauty of Atlassian. You have a platform that's scalable, that's built to grow and modernize with you as your use case changes, and it's for everyone. So I think that's why Atlassian is a really strong platform to really make that pitch of replacing all the legacy tools that proliferates in our customer base.
Yeah,
I just want to add one more thing. I actually feel, you raised a very good point. I think one of the key factors, in my opinion, Atlassian is becoming so successful, especially like I was saying, the upskilling part, right, previously, because the product is so simplified, right, that even the person who is non-skilled technically or was doing something in a legacy stack is able to come forward and learn it quickly. The ramp up time of adoption is always key to any change, and that's Atlassian has done a tremendous job. I mean, so much so in last year, Team 24, for the audience, the universities, Atlassian University is free, right? So a user can go in, learn. It's all gamified, right? I mean, that's kind of, every organization wants the learning to be quick, adoption to be quick, and that's another thing which Atlassian has done a tremendous job in my mind.
You know, sorry if I may interject, because
sure.
when you talked about Atlassian being so easy, so I'll give my personal experience. So I said I joined Atlassian in October of last year. Actually, I used Confluence before. I'd never used Jira as one of our platform. And when I got into my role, one of the things that I said is that how do I really learn Jira on my own? And what we do in our sales processes, we do this thing called a mutual action plan, which is essentially an accountability matrix that we hold our teams and our customers accountable. It's almost like a project plan. And I said, like, we should be able to build this in Jira. So I said, I'll take that on and learn the product. And I kid you not, I mean, within a week or so, we built out a template. I built out a template. I learned it. And we actually used that with our customers to say, like, hey, we're trying to solve and come to a mutually agreed plan and end result. Why don't we actually track our work in our own products? And the customers actually loved it. So I want to just underscore how easy it is to pick up our product, especially in the cloud, and then learn it, use it, and just roll it out.
No, but let's not say you are way too skilled. I was actually, but I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think you both you brought up good points, but then you both touched on the people and process side of thing, and that's really important. Arham, when you talk about the system of work, right, and Atlassian's own adoption of how we do things and recognizing that there are improvements to be had. We're constantly learning, not only internally but from our customers themselves. And I think that 20 years of experience, we're able to share these best practices and ideas and lessons learned. And I think Atlassian is, really great at collaboration. But when we look at our partners and our customers, we are sharing what we see as the best path forward. And so, that might lead us into the next question, or you have something else to add?
No, I actually I've seen other competitive products. I think one thing I have to compliment is a lot of the other competitive products are very close knit, right? And Atlassian's approach has always been, even if it is coexistence, they have been very good at coexistence.
Yeah,
so it's a truly
100%.
partnership approach. Again, some of the competitive products we all know are not good at coexistence.
They're closed ecosystems.
They're a
We're
closed
open,
ecosystem.
right?
They're an open ecosystem, which again goes back to the point that the modernization becomes much easier, because if the customer chooses to do it in a more stepped approach, right? Because we can coexist and because we are open system, the adoption becomes easier for the customer, so they can do it in more stepped approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that as well to add is Atlassian is open by nature and our tools as well. And so when we are looking, we know that there are a tremendous amount of tools that are used by, let's pick developers. And yes, we want to limit that context switching and make them easier, be able to get their jobs done. But at the same time, we recognize those other tools are valuable. Many of them, yes, we might be able to satisfy requirements from some of them, but we do recognize there are great tools out there. And so we want to make sure that Jira and our cloud products are open and integrations are tight, but we're keeping that work streamlined, do everything out of our tools, have that power of everything.
Yeah. Just for audience, so basically you can have project management in Jira and service management in some other product, or service management in JSM and project management in another product. It's a completely open ecosystem which we can integrate seamlessly, bring everything together, or I have everything under one umbrella within sort of Atlassian ecosystem.
Awesome.
It's safe to say that Atlassian is used very widely across our government and customers, and for a long time. And that started with server many years ago, moved on to data center, where most of our customers stand currently. We have a great cloud offering that is constantly being innovated and features and functionality being added. We talked about Rovo earlier, which if anyone saw Team 25, super exciting stuff. And now we have Atlassian Government Cloud AGC, newly authorized in March. What should our customers be thinking about as they evaluate what's next steps for them, whether it's continue on data center, moving to cloud, AGC, and Arham, I'll have you start.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to think about Atlassian, yes, we've been around for 25 years, right? And you likely said that a lot of our customers and a lot of our federal agencies are using our products. But when you think about Atlassian now and how we've evolved, we're a cloud first company, right? So all of the innovations that we're putting in to the wide ecosystem, into the marketplace, actually goes through our cloud products, right? So what I would tell all the government agencies that are out there utilizing a product and thinking about Atlassian and what's next, I would highly recommend and encourage them to look at our cloud products, right? So when you think about, it comes down to deployment models. So the other thing that I would also say is that our cloud product is not the same as a data center hosted in a cloud infrastructure, if you will. It's a brand net new product that we've been building and evolving over the last, decade or so. And it's mature enough to handle a lot of the workloads, right? So what's the main flavor of the differences when you think about the deployment models? We have our commercial clouds, right? Which are utilized by Fortune 100 companies who also have very stringent security requirements, by the way, right? So as you are a government agency and you're thinking about your data and your classification of that data, you have to ask yourself, what are the security constraints and parameters I have to have around my data? If it's sensitive, if you require a certain amount of stringent requirements when it comes to security and compliance, I would recommend that they look at our FedRAMP offering, because it's authorized at the FedRAMP compliance level, which means at the moderate classification level, we can actually host that data, those workflows and everything, right? For customers, and there's a lot of federal agencies that say like, you know what, our data and our workflows are not as stringent from a security perspective, they can actually evaluate and look at our commercial clouds. For a small percentage for government customers, we've seen that they can adopt commercial cloud. Now, sometimes they say, hey, we start out with commercial cloud, but then our data posture, our security posture, our workflows change. You can now migrate from commercial cloud to FedRAMP cloud. And by the way, we would provide the tooling along with partners like Clovity, with Anuj and his team. We can actually seamlessly migrate you from commercial cloud to FedRAMP cloud or AG's Atlassian Gov cloud. And the reason I say that is that I don't want our customers to think that if they pick a deployment model, they're stuck with it, right? There's a lot of flexibility and maneuverability in terms of moving from one cloud, the commercial cloud, to our Atlassian Gov cloud. Now, like just to summarize, right? We have many different deployment offerings. We're a cloud-first company, right? So our customers should be evaluating our cloud products, whether it's in the commercial cloud or Atlassian Gov cloud, and really make a choice on what fits their use cases, the data classification, and then go to that. And again, it's not you're locked in.
Yeah.
Your requirements change, your use cases change. You can go back and forth, if you will.
Yeah.
See, my point of view is very simple. Look, I think Arham said cloud first is, and it's not just about Atlassian. Look, the industry is going towards that direction. And if you need the scale of AI, you have to be in the cloud. You can't create that scale.
That's correct.
And how do we make sure the customer, and typically this journey is 5-year journey. I mean, the way we are interacting with the customer, we are saying, look, you are on data center today. You must move to sort of cloud platform to start off with, and there could be a staggered deployment. They could have certain aspects sitting in DC which are more critical, but there's sort of non-critical things into sort of the cloud. And then gradually you create a 5-year journey for customers who are able to move into moderate environment. We move them straight into moderate environment. And we know a few years down, there is the FedRAMP high coming. And I mean, any cloud journey is a multi-year journey, right? And the beauty of it is, because as I said, again, I go back, AI is here to stay. An organization which will not adopt it or have the infrastructure or have the roadmap around it, they will be left behind.
Yeah.
And that's not right for the citizens of America, right? Because the speed of information in the federal government or in general in the public sector has to go leaps and bounds to service the as you said, save the tax dollars and to service the citizens.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I think I can add on there. It is. We know we're a little bit behind our commercial cloud, as most FedRAMP offerings are, but our goal is feature parity with commercial cloud, and we've seen the tremendous success that our commercial customers have had. And it's not going to be long before we're able to say, hey, you're getting the same thing. And so that's super exciting, because
honestly, what you're just saying
and
is
you're doing both sides, right?
I mean, look at it. Look, what you just said is opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where with AI at its where it is, with AGC where it is, with moderate coming or with high coming soon, right? I mean, that's the opportunity for for Atlassian to scale, and in general sort of be positioned. I mean, I'm sure like for the audience as well, earlier this week Atlassian was rated higher on the Forrester side as well. So things are going leaps and bounds. I mean, and that's where the opportunity is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that sets up a good point around migration planning, right? We want our customers to be in a position where they're able to take advantage of the great things that are coming down our roadmap, and we know that that's going to accelerate soon. We're getting there, and it's going to just get more and more. And so when we think about planning for a migration, what a migration looks like, Arham, do you want to start, and then we'll pass it over to Anuj with?
Yeah, sure. I think obviously Anuj will have a lot of perspective because he's in the thick of it with our customers. But I think what at a high level, what I would tell our customers is that treat this as a transformation journey.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, our products have been around. They've been utilized fairly heavily, and for good reason, because they add a lot of value to our customers. But that also means that there's been some level of inefficiency that are also built up in our products over time and usage, right? So when it comes to migrating to the cloud, to the next gen platform, let's really use this opportunity to transform, right? Let's figure out what it is that really works, what doesn't work. Let's try and do some cleanup. Let's try and really reimagine what our future looks like in cloud and treat that, whether it be a big bang approach or phase approach, but really look at it from a transformation perspective. Anuj?
So it's very interesting, right? And I always talk to the customers. See, the way I look at migration is like moving homes.
Mhm.
When you move homes from sort of a legacy system to a new home, you end up almost seeing what's you shouldn't take.
Right.
That's how migration is, right? So you sort of are doing one aspect of it is audit of what you have, which is unused, and you almost do a cleanup exercise of what you should take. I mean, we have come across customers, they are like 700 projects, and they haven't even touched 50% of those, but they exist. You archive the data, you move only the good data. That's one element of it. The other thing which in migration is very, very key is basically what all integrations do they have, what all apps do they have, right? And how do you make sure those are sort of seamlessly moved, right? That's one of the key components, because like I was telling earlier, over the period they have built so many. There are custom apps or there are marketplace apps which we have to make sure are seamlessly migrated, and that's a key component of migration, right? And then the third element of migration is which is the workflows and automation, right? Again, that has to be looked at. How many? I mean, again, the depending on sort of the how spread out the org is, right? You could have automation sitting there which are unused, so you start to move again, you start to optimize those as you move into the migration space. So typically the process is very simple. You sit with the customer, depending on sort of the number of users, the way the old platform, you sort of do a quick discovery and assessment. There is obviously a questionnaire. You go through the whole drill of how many integrations, how many projects, what's sort of sitting there, and then you start to draw out a roadmap of migration. You do it in lower environment first. The good part is, again, for the audience, Atlassian offers at no cost the sandbox environment, test environments at no charge, right? So you can spin up as many lower environments, do your tests, and then eventually you do a cutover.
Yeah, and to add to that, too, then thank you for the reminder. Atlassian also kind of will help provide a migration specialist
Oh,
to
yes.
actually work with our partners, work with our customers, to make sure that they're very successful.
Oh yes,
So
there is a dedicated.
Yeah.
That's an important aspect of like what's the outcome. Like we want very successful outcomes of our customers to be very successful in their new home.
Agreed, and we rely heavily on our partners, but we also want to make sure that this is a seamless process. And
Exactly.
so we've got a number of programs that help enable not only our customers but our partners, because we want to get from where you are to where you want to be as quickly as possible. No one wants to drag out that move.
Right. Awesome.
We've said it a number of times. Government has been using Atlassian software for a long time. We've been around for a long time. I'll say it. We're the de facto tool of choice for IT teams and software developers, and it shows based on our customer base. But we've seen this shift recently, and maybe not that recently. It's come into more focus for us, and that there's incredible efficiencies to gain in by moving outside those IT teams. And so, Anuj, I'll have you start with this one. I mean, what are you seeing?
So this is my favorite subject, to be honest. We actually internally pivoted and we stopped using word ITSM. We basically use ESM, because Atlassian JSM is not an ITSM. It is an enterprise service management tool. It's not just for IT project management. We even changed that. We said enterprise work management.
Yeah.
Right? Because the beauty of the product is, and that's kind of where the economies of scale comes in, right? Once you implement it right within sort of the enterprise service management space within your IT department, and if it's templatized, the foundation is built correctly, then you can have legal, sort of all the legal service management go through that. Or HR is very prominent now already out there, right? You can have marketing, you can have facilities, especially in the public sector space, when you have let's say a campus, right? Who wants to have facilities maintained through this thing, right? So then you have your asset management, which is also part of the facilities, whether it's hardware or software facilities. On the project management side, you can pretty much manage soups to nut the client, from client onboarding to employee onboarding to your internal projects. All of that can be managed, right? So the extent is huge, right? So I think there was this perception issue initially, but I think slowly the customers are seeing how the economies of scale of the same product can be applied to 7 different departments. And the good news is now there are partners out there who have built templates to make it more verticalized or specialized, and the obviously the customers have full access to that, and that makes even the launch faster.
Yeah, and I would add to that. So essentially, you look at our core products, which is Jira, JSM, Confluence, and how they're utilized, right? And I give you my personal example, which is nothing to do with development, and I use Jira to actually templatize how we essentially hold our teams and our customers accountable. So like that's an easy segue away from IT or development team on utilizing the same product for a sales use case, if you will. And there are many examples of that out there in the marketplace, which is marketing teams are using Jira for how they track their work and their projects. Similarly, you talked about HR, which is a big one, even legal, right? So if you think about legal and how they do work within the government space, right? They're essentially a service provider to their internal end customers, and they can essentially utilize JSM for request intakes to do legal work, and they track that work. It's like essentially case management, and JSM actually provides all of that functionality that any department within a federal agency that has to do with case management or service requests can actually utilize JSM, which is great. Confluence is like knowledge management. Who doesn't use knowledge management within with the government, right? I mean, it's like a giant knowledge repository if you think about it. So anything you do with FOIA requests from a citizen-facing perspective, which citizens putting in, which can be coming through from an intake perspective from JSM, the data can be actually stored in Confluence that can be serviced back out to the citizen on the kind of request that they need. So there's a lot of different ways that our products can be used in these non-IT ways. And then on top of that, we're actually building bespoke products for other teams within a department. Like, you know, we talked about a few of those, like Strategy Collection. Strategy Collection is actually a great product that can be utilized by the exec teams that's sitting outside of IT, but they have a vested interest to see how IT teams that are working on things that impact their mission, right? Because a lot of times when you go and talk to our customers, when we talk to our customers, one of the things that they talk about a lot is that how do we get visibility into where the bottlenecks are, right? How do we get a really granular visibility on how things are working that actually impact our missions? And that's beyond IT, right? So we are building and layering on additional capabilities on top of our core platform, or core products, I should say, that branch out from IT.
Actually, not to forget, by the way, and I only learned it recently, on the pricing side, Atlassian JSM, they don't charge person who's raising the ticket, which a lot of our competitors do.
Yeah.
So only the resolver gets charged, which almost like straight up 1/5
or
approvers, right?
So that's why it's like for citizen intake use cases, JSM makes the perfect sense from a cost effectiveness perspective, because we're not charging for any of the citizens putting an intake.
Yeah, I mean that's a cost saving right there.
Yeah. And how about a little bit on ease of implementation? I mean, you put together some very complex, JSM projects as well as simple ones. And what do you see as far as customers being able to, how often do they need to involve experts if they're spinning up a new service desk or have a new workflow?
See, the good part is that's a very good question. As long as the foundation is done right, it is very easily usable. So if you make sure that your workflows are built correctly, whether it is for a legal department or for an HR department, you can do that automation and reuse that. So you can almost create let's say if there's a workflow which has a common 3 element, you create that as a template. and you can refer that workflow, which can be reused every time for all 7 departments. Right, so the reusability aspect is key there with right automation, right? And honestly, what we have seen, the interface, which is very adaptable, it is very user friendly, and I mean, pretty much even a non-tech user, as I said earlier, is very easily able to get onboarded and use the system. I mean, if you look at mobile app, I mean, it's pretty responsive, it's pretty slick, right? So if I am the person who's sort of, let's say, in an environment where is a legal person or as an employee of a federal government, if I have to raise a request, hey, I have a laptop problem, I can quickly go onto my app, I can raise a request, I get this thing. I mean, simple interface. I don't even need a training for that, actually, for that matter.
Yeah.
Right. And now, again, the beauty of it is with AI coming in, right, with Rovo sort of being more adaptable, a lot of times I don't even realize as a requester that my ticket was resolved, my service ticket was resolved without even a human intervention. Because that's where the integration of Rovo and Confluence comes in.
Right.
Most of these things are seamless, and then your ROI becomes quicker.
Sure. Excellent. So we're wrapping this up. I mean, any last words or things that we've covered a lot. There's so much at Atlassian to talk about right now, and so anything you want to leave the audience with?
No, look, I mean, just from audience perspective, I think there is as I said, there is a huge shift from legacy. I call it process transformation, and Atlassian sort of fits right in. And especially with the new introduction of Rovo being free, I personally believe that's a huge leap from a sort of how the organization will look at it, right? Because it's a direct introduction of AI within the backend, right, within the process transformation arena. And now with AGC, I mean, that's like there's no other way than to not adopt it, right? Because it's everything is now there. And last but not the least, with the 5,000 apps we have, you're not only achieving the service management or the project management piece, you can then do 10 other things in the domain, which sort of connects the service management project management piece.
Awesome. Arham?
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. Yeah, we're a product company. We love our products. We deliver a lot of value, but let's not forget the human element, right? So me coming in and leading the federal civilian go-to-market team at Atlassian, all I want to say is that if you're a federal agency out there and you are a customer or thinking about becoming a customer, reach out to us. Engage with us. We have a lot of knowledge between ourselves, our partner community, and we can help in this transformation journey. You're not in it alone. We want to be in lockstep with you to make sure that you're getting to the outcome, which we all know is mission critical for our country, right? Because at the end of the day, our federal agencies serve the American citizens, and we want to make sure that we are locking in with you in delivering that mission. So engage us, work with us, let us help you kind of get to that outcome.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'll add just on, echoing what Arham said. I mean, we have so many conversations and very few go by where we're not talking about another customer with a customer about the same challenges. And there's a lot of collaboration to be had, and there's a lot of solutions between what Atlassian is doing and our great partners that we want to share with our customers. And it's exciting times. Atlassian Government Cloud is going to open up a lot of opportunity for our customers, and it's going to be the spot to be, and they're just going to continue to make great gains. So thank you both for hanging out today, and looking forward to talking to folks after they hear this.
Awesome.